Okay, hello guys. Today is a continuation of yesterday's video after I got cut off from the live feed for bad connection issues. It was I'm stuck at the border, ask me anything kind of deal. And so to recap, the deal with the border is because of all the Ottawa protests. And to recap the Ottawa protests, truckers and all sorts of other people have been kind of fed up with the mandates and lockdowns and stuff in Canada due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. So they all convoyed up across the country into Ottawa and are currently parked there protesting all the mandates and stuff going on. And there are other little protests going on all across the country in different spots. One of them in particular is the Windsor-Detroit border crossing, and it has been closed since Tuesday, maybe Monday. Today's Thursday. So yesterday was the second full day it was closed. I crossed over Tuesday morning. It was fine. Basically, there's two border crossings going into Michigan: Detroit, Windsor, and Sarnia, Port Huron. I rarely cross at Detroit, Windsor. So the closure didn't really affect me going into the States that morning. It wasn't until the afternoon that all the traffic that normally crosses at Detroit, Windsor couldn't cross there because it was closed, so they went up to Port Huron to cross, and that created a crazy backup of traffic. And I was supposed to cross back empty Tuesday afternoon, and I said, screw that, I'm not waiting in the line. So I went up north, grabbed a load of lumber, and came back at it Wednesday morning. And it still took 5.5 hours of sitting through traffic to cross the bridge. But in that time, my last video is a live video, and I went live asking what your questions are for me, and ask me anything. The live feed was cut out about 30 minutes into it, and there were a lot of unanswered questions. I also asked if you had any questions after that to put them in a comment, and I'll answer them. So I have a few pages of comments that you guys have asked questions for, and I'm going to go through and answer them. So we're going to start right where we left off at the last video. The first comment I did not answer was from Gohan is underrated. By the way, if I say any of these names wrong, I apologize. I am doing my best. He says, I am 1 year OTR trucker, but still wish I had the winter experience like the Canadian truckers. Being in South Florida all my life till now. Any advice? Basically, he's asking for advice for driving through winter. And up here in Canada, winter is very common. When it snows, it's usually, everything's always usually cleaned up within 24 hours after the snowstorm. If you're down south and driving through snow, a lot of the southern states are not equipped to deal with the snow, so they don't have snow plows, they don't have salt trucks or anything. So when it does snow, in the rare occasion down there, it's extremely slippery, it's extremely icy, and no one knows how to drive through it. So even if you're a northern driver going down south and it snows, it is still a good idea to not drive if you don't have to, because one, the roads aren't going to be prepared like you are usually used to, and two, the drivers are not going to be prepared. The drivers around you are not prepared like you're usually used to. So if it snows in the south, avoid it if you can. If you can't avoid it, then you basically take the same precautions you would anywhere else, and basically expect that you will have absolutely no traction on the road and drive slow, leave lots of following distance, and just monitor everything around you. Be super vigilant on what's going on, because you're not the only one on the road, and even if you're doing the best you can to adapt to the situation and the conditions, the people around you necessarily aren't going to. So leave lots of space ahead of you, leave lots of space around you. That can include an exit strategy. That's really a good strategy to have at any point you're driving, is to just leave yourself an out. Whether that means the truck in front of you stops or the car in front of you stops and you have to eat it on the shoulder or eat it into the ditch, it's still kind of better than hitting other vehicles and potentially killing someone. Always be aware of the traffic around you, like around in other lanes around you, because you can use another lane as an emergency out if it's empty. So just always keep in your brain that what's going on around you and how you can get out of a situation if one arises. So, Riley Helmer and Noel Vigenthart. I am definitely not saying that right. Vigenthart. They say, hello, how's it going? Good. I'm currently, that lumber load I had yesterday, I delivered it, and I am currently sitting up northern-ish Ontario waiting to get loaded with 18 skids of salt. And that's going to be delivered to Canada, like Ontario deliveries tomorrow, because the border is still an absolute mess and I don't want to go through that again. Tanker Money says, starting to hear rumors of trucker shutdown in the States. I've heard those same rumors too. It sounds like, from what I hear, March 1st is when they're going to start the rallies and basically convoy down to DC. That's all I know of it, but the rumors are there, and from what people are saying, buy your groceries, buy everything now, because store shelves will be empty. Sigma Paradise says, are you a truck driver? Yes I am. Ryan Tenjum, I believe I'm saying that right, maybe, says, hello from Wisconsin. Anytime someone says that, when I read that comment, it immediately flashed me back to the intro of That 70s Show where Kelso yells out, hello, Wisconsin! Matt Taylor, do you think that Canucks should get rid of Trudeau? Simon's Channel also asks the same question. So this is getting pretty deep into the whole idea of the trucker protest. And as far as my opinion on Trudeau, I think he's kind of being used as a scapegoat for everything that's been happening. And really, anyone kind of in his position through this whole pandemic is going to have a hard time pleasing everyone. So I'm not saying he did everything right. I'm not saying he did everything wrong. The choices he made as the prime minister are the choices he made, and it'd be pretty tough to do anything different than that. But I will say his current handling of the trucker protests is, in my eyes, kind of not really professional. From what it seems, he's just completely ignoring the fact that the protesters are in Ottawa, and I think he should at least address the concerns that they have with the protests. Like I said before, I'm kind of neutral with this whole thing. So there's two sides to the story. One, yeah, other places are dropping the mandates, and we could do the same. But on the other hand, the mandates are there for a reason. Whether they work or not, I personally haven't done the research on that, so I'm not going to comment on that. But he has his reasons for doing what he did and what he is doing with the mandates, and I wish he would just approach the protest and explain his reasoning for his decisions. So far, all I've seen him do is just kind of avoid the whole subject and hide away or walk out on the meetings and stuff. So, should we get rid of Trudeau? I don't know. But his handling of the situation could be done better. That is my opinion. Do not take it as fact. This is opinion. Danny Bentley says, what's your input on Justin Trudeau? I think I just went through that. Okay. Josh Foley, have you ever wanted to drive a European style truck? Now, this is the question that I was answering when the live feed lost connection. I have driven 2 European style trucks, both of them a Volvo, neither of them a cab over. They both had the arrow hood. In both instances, it was for a day or two at a time while my truck was in the shop, kind of as a rental truck. The first one was a stick, and it seemed to have a lot of nannies, like for instance, my truck, the engine likes between 14 and 1700 RPM, whereas this Volvo, anything over 15, it would just throttle the it was basically a speed limiter, but RPM based. So I would be pulling a heavy load and trying to run it up past 1500 just to get in a little more wiggle room, and it would throttle it, so you have to shift down. The view from Volvos is you can see a lot more. The hood is a lot lower, and I noticed that my knee was basically, like, when I was sitting in the seat, my knee was here, and the window, the bottom of the window, was basically here. So it was kind of weird having people be able to look up and into the cab and stuff, but you can also see a lot more when the windows are down that low. Would I drive a European, not even a style truck, a European truck? I would like to try a European truck just because it would be an experience and something to learn from. Again, European trucks have a lot more, are a lot more technologically advanced than American trucks like the Peterbilt I'm driving right now. This thing barely has ABS, whereas European trucks have like blind spot sensors and crash avoidance, automatic braking for stuff like that. And European trucks drive through a lot tighter streets too. So being a cab over is very common over there. And the trailer configuration, the truck and trailer configuration is a little bit different. They have a single drive axle and 3 axles on the trailer, I believe. There's a forklift coming over here. Is it for me or the other guy? it's for the other guy. Okay, I'll keep going. Yeah, the other Volvo I drove was an automatic, and that was an experience and a half. I don't know if it made it in the cut of the last video, but the experience of driving an automatic Volvo is kind of halfway between a transport truck and a pickup truck. Like, you just kind of put the foot down and it goes through the gears and it makes things happen, but you still have to watch your corners because you're pulling a 53-foot trailer or whatever trailers you're pulling with it. There are certain situations where I prefer to have the stick, mostly like hill climbs, traction. Like my one hill climb video, I struggled with traction and I wouldn't know how that would handle with an automatic, deciding where the shifts would be. It could be amazing. I don't know. I physically have never had experience doing that. And my other concern is, say you're pulling a van trailer and you're backing up to a dock, or you're backing into a parking spot and a truck stop, and you want to be inching very, very slowly. And in a standard transmission, you can feather the clutch and get it down to basically as slow as you possibly want. Whereas an automatic, I know some of them now have a crawl mode. I don't have any experience with that. But from what I heard with the early automatics is that you basically have to mash on the gas pedal for anything to happen, and then all of a sudden you're bumping into the dock and wrecking things. I'm sure it's fixed by now, though. Okay. Robin Marie. My 4 grandkids love your videos. They make me promise that if you come on, I have to go to their house so they can watch you. That's actually really cute. Shout out to the grandchildren. Okay. LOL. That is literally his name. Do your dogs go with you in the truck, or how do they relieve themselves?
Justin.
I believe I did.
Yeah, what's going on? You eat a lot, Tommy.
I believe I did mention this in the last video. I don't know if it made the cut or not, but my dog Gizmo, she rode in the truck once and was shaking in the bunk the whole time, so she's not really on the road kind of truck dog, so she stays at home. Gizmo in particular, she's really good with bathroom breaks. Like, she has gone on her own choice, she has gone 24 hours without a bathroom break, and that's she doesn't like rainy days, and it was a rainy whole couple days, and she would not for the life of her step outside of the house and go in the backyard. So I would figure if I did bring a dog in the truck, though, every time I stop I would pop the dog out and let it do its business in the grass or something. That forklift is not for me. Okay, gonna keep going. Edmonds Corsax says, hi, from your videos I notice you wave at everyone. What's up with that? The little trucker wave is kind of an old practice from truckers on the road. Basically, you're in your own little club, and you just kind of wave at other truckers when you're on the back roads and another guy's coming towards you. You give him a wave. A lot of guys wave back. Some don't understand that it's a thing. And for myself, when I see another truck on the highway going the other way that catches my eye, I'll give them a wave, and oftentimes I'll get one back. So it's just a friendly little gesture, and keeping the spirit of the old road alive. David Jr., what trailer do you have today? Well, the trailer I have today is the same one I had yesterday when the question was asked, and it is a 7-axle B-train trailer. Hold on a second, I got a way to... Can I flip this around? Okay, it's not letting me flip around. That's the trailer there. It has the triaxle in the middle, and then it has 2 axles at the back, and that's the Canadian setup. And then when I cross over to Michigan, because they have such wonky axle laws, there's 2 drop axles that go in between those 2 sets of axles, and they disperse the weight a little bit more for the Michigan road laws. McLovin Big Max says, what's the most scary encounter you had while truck driving? I don't know what the scariest event or encounter was. I mean, when I first started out, I explained this before in a different video. I had a guy in Chicago. I took a not good route in a not so good neighborhood, and he came up to my side window on the passenger side when I was waiting at a red light, and looked directly inside, and was trying to sell me like hats or something like that. That was pretty freaky, especially as a new driver. I was arrested at the border the one time, and that is a story I will share in another video at some point, because it's a wild ride, but it wasn't necessarily scary. Probably the scariest thing I had was, so a lot of old truckers talk about seeing the black dog in the middle of the road, and that's kind of your warning sign for you've been driving too long and you should take a break before something bad actually happens. I didn't see a black dog, but I saw a black lump in the middle of the road and ran right over top of it. And this was back in the paper log days, so I wasn't really supposed to be where I was at the time. And I've been driving for a lot of hours at that point, so it kind of freaked me out. And it did actually happen, because I checked the next morning and there was blood all over the bottom of the truck and the trailer. So yeah, I ran over something, maybe a bear, maybe a deer or something. I don't know, but that was probably the scariest experience I've had on the road myself. I know it's not all that much, but I'd prefer not to have a scary experience, honestly. I'm okay with that. Ryan Morrison asks, best advice for managing weight on your axles? Exercise and eating right. Seriously though. No, he's talking about when you're loading a load, how do you get it correct on each axle? Because your axles can only take so much weight. See, there's 2 kinds of ways to measure the load. It's gross weight, and that's the maximum you can have, period. And then you also have to worry about the weight being distributed on each of the axles. So on a flatbed trailer, basically you try to keep the weight of the load in the middle of the trailer. Most of the trailers are designed to disperse the weight evenly, if you have the weight evenly across the trailers. In van trailers, you can't really, you have to start at the front of the trailer and work your way back. And if you have a lot of heavy skids, like salt or concrete or something like that, and you're not going to take a full trailer load of skids, then you kind of start staggering them out. And what I mean by that is kind of like you put one row of 2 right at the front, and then you put a single, and then you put 2, and then you put a single, and then you put maybe another single or something, but you basically even it out so you get some weight at the back of the trailer. rather than piling it all two on the first half of the trailer and having nothing on the back, because you're going to be way overweight on your drives, and the scales don't like that. With the B trains, again, they're kind of like two flatbed trailers, and you try to keep the weight in the centers. So if you're loading a load of skidded product, if you're not really familiar with what the weight's going to be like, then you kind of start in the middle and work your way out on each trailer. When I'm doing my stone loads, depending on the thickness of the stone, I've done a lot of stone loads, so I have a pretty good idea of what's going to weigh what. But you do the bottom layer all across both trailers, and depending on the thickness, you might do a second layer of 3 wide, you might do the second layer 2 wide, and then once you get the base layer figured out, then you look at your gauges, because on my equipment, every axle is an air pressure, it's an air ride suspension, so there's a pressure gauge, and you can judge by the pressure gauge how much weight is on that axle, and you can get within a couple 100 pounds of being exactly perfect on it. So I do the base layer of the load and then look at my axles, and if one of them is too heavy, then you take a stone off, you move it somewhere else, or just take it off in general. And if something's light, then you put a stone or two directly on top of that light axle. But it's basically something, once you start doing it and getting used to it, you learn what's going to work for your equipment and what's not. Back in my early days when I was doing OTR and driving across the US all the time, the scales are often open and they're pretty picky about that 80,000 pound gross weight. I had a spread axle flatbed trailer at the time, and that could take 40,000 pounds. So I had 6,000 pounds of wiggle room to move between the two axles. So it was fairly, if you load it evenly and scale out below 80,000 pounds, you're probably going to be all right. But again, you check your air gauges and figure out what axle has what. Yeah, it was you just get doing it, and it's you learn the equipment. Okay, hot seat, that is the name. What percentage of truckers do you see there that are Americans in your day-to-day travel? So normally I don't really look at the license plates and where each truck is from when I'm going down the road, but I have noticed that when I'm driving around in Ontario, most of the trucks are Ontario plates. Like, there's a lot of regional work within Ontario, and only a small percentage is actually cross-border. And the same goes for when you're in the States. Like when I'm in Michigan, I see a lot of Michigan plates. Mind you, because it's so close to the border, that if you are traveling on the border routes like I-69, I-94, going deeper into the States, you see more Ontario plates than you would in other places of Michigan. But from what I've seen and paid attention to, it stays pretty regional. So I don't see too many American trucks in Ontario on my travels, but they are out there. Alex Lujan, or Luan, I do not know how to pronounce that. What do you recommend to someone that is thinking of getting into trucking? He also states that he's 23, lives in Texas, and doesn't want to do OTR. So what I normally tell people is, when you look into getting into the trucking industry, if you can keep your nose clean for the first at least the first year, preferably the first 3 years, then you can go basically anywhere you want because everyone will hire you. The problem is straight out of school or straight out of getting your license, a lot of places aren't going to touch you because of insurance reasons. Like the smaller companies, they don't have the insurance policies to hire someone with no experience. So you're usually stuck going to some of the bigger carriers and mega carriers, and they like to put you OTR. So, I mean, my recommendation would be do OTR for the first year just for the experience alone of being on the road and going to truck stops, having the truck stop showers. It's a lifestyle that you wouldn't really get an opportunity to experience any other way. So try to make the best of it if you do get because you likely will have to start at OTR. So my recommendation would be basically do it for the experience and for the do it for the experience of doing it and for the experience of getting on the road and having some time in the seat. And then you can be hired anywhere else and do some local stuff, unless you can actually find a place that'll hire you locally right out of school. And if that's what you want to do, then jump on it. Just say yes, go for it. That's my advice. Dan Scrofani, when you get to be a big trucking company CEO, would you hire me? Well, I'm already a little company CEO, and I'm also a little company janitor at the same time, because I have my own incorporation. When I do get around to taking the next steps, like send me your resumes, and if something can be worked out that'll work between for both parties, then yeah, I'll hire you, sure. The thing is, I am likely going to be local to Ontario for the first couple of years just because of insurance and what happens when you're running your own authority. So if things will work out that I can hire you, yeah, why not? But that's not for another few years. He also asks, what cars do you drive when you're not trucking? So my main personal vehicle is a 2005 Dodge Ram 1500 extended cab long bed 8-foot box pickup truck, and the thing has 404,000 kilometers on it now, and still on the original motor and transmission. It was owned by a guy who was a painter and did a lot of highway miles on it, and he took very good care of it. And I bought it in the summer of 2020, and it's been a good truck for me, and I use it all the time, and I very much appreciate the 8-foot box over a 5.7 or even a 6-foot box. I also have a 2013 Scion FRS, which is bone stock except for tires, and I use that for driving around as well, but also racing. I do autocross racing. It's on my second channel. I'll link that in the description. If you want to follow me on my racing stuff, you can check it out there. I try not to post too much about the racing on this channel because people don't really appreciate non-trucking stuff sometimes. I also have a 1979 Fiat Spider that I bought when I was 17 in high school, and that was my first car, and it is also currently in storage along with the FRS. But I drive that around. I used to race it, and it would break down literally every race, so I bought the FRS to kind of replace that. But now it's just a retired race car and cruise around, go to car shows in the area kind of deal. So yeah, those are my 3 other cars other than the big truck that we're in right now. So we still got a few more questions to answer here. Joel Guzman says, got my CDL. Congratulations, that's a big feat nowadays. And I'm learning to drive in the city and take turns. How do you keep your composure and stay cool? And also, can you show us how not to get tangled up with the gears when taking turns? So yeah, when you're driving truck, you can. It's a big vehicle, and roads aren't necessarily designed to handle the size of vehicle all the time. So when you're going to an unfamiliar area, Google Maps, like satellite view and street view, is a godsend. I use that all the time. Look at where I'm going. Always plan out your route beforehand, and that includes when you actually get to the delivery. Where does it look like I can park the truck and go in and ask where they want me to park for real? Yeah, sometimes you get in situations where you're coming up to a corner and it doesn't really look like you're gonna fit. So if you have a chance, you can pull over on the shoulder or something and inspect the area before you get to it. I've done that for a lot of deliveries that I've never been to. So just try to go at it with the best knowledge you can. Try to learn everything about what you're getting yourself into before getting into it. And I mean, you're going to get into situations that you can't predict regardless. Like, I showed up in Buffalo the one time and surrounded by low bridges, and I had no other escape route other than to pull on the shoulder, pull out the map and go satellite view. And there was one road that I could do 3 left turns around and get back out on the interstate. And I hopped a bunch of curbs and drove right past the school as all the school buses were dropping off the children. So it was a really tight street. I was up on the sidewalk trying to get past it all. And I mean, just pull over, figure out your situation. There is no shame in coming down a road, even if it doesn't have the shoulder, coming up to a low bridge or something like that, and just pull over halfway out of the lane. Just don't hit anything, because that just makes things worse. I mean, no matter what, you're going to get out of a situation one way or another. There are better ways to get out of it. Some of them involve getting tickets and towed and stuff like that. They try to avoid, but it can happen. It's just, the way I stay cool about stuff like that is, you know what? It happened. Let's figure out how to get it. Take it step by step. And you're going to get out of it one way or another. As far as making turns with the truck, I was told in school, basically get your gear shifts out of the way as you're pulling straight into the intersection, and then don't change gears while you're actually physically making the turn. The problem is the trailer, as soon as you start turning, the wheels kind of lock up against each other, especially if you're doing multi-axle stuff. And when you try to shift in a turn, the trailer, as soon as you release the gas and pop it out of gear, the trailers pull back on the truck, and you can miss. It's fairly common to miss the gears. So you try not to shift while you're making the actual turn, but some situations you have to. And what I do in that, you'll see it in some videos, is you basically take the gear and you just mash it into the next gear, because that's how quickly your revs are going to drop and the speed is going to drop, that you need to like quickly let off the gas and just mash it into the next gear in order to make it. And if you miss it, yeah, it's gonna happen. You're gonna stop in the middle of the intersection and have to grab gear, like first your low gear again, and start all over again. But those things happen, and you just You just laugh it off and say, oops, oh well, and keep going. That's all you can do. Amaranthian450 says, do you agree with the trucking convoy? I agree with parts of the convoy. I also agree they are allowed to express, they're allowed the right to peaceful protest. They're allowed the right to do what they're doing. Do I agree that mandates should be lifted? That's the tipping point where it's kind of a balance between saving lives and living your life. And I don't have the proper information to go one way or the other, so I'm staying neutral in that perspective. But I do agree they have the right to peaceful protest. Are they taking it too far? I don't know. I'm not physically there to make a valid opinion on that. But as I said earlier in this video, I do believe Trudeau needs to at least acknowledge that they're there and they have concerns, and he should be willing to explain his side of the story and should be able to at least acknowledge that, hey, yeah, I see that you're there. I see you have these concerns. Here's my rebuttal, instead of just running away from the situation. Jonathan Bryan asks, are you thinking about maybe buying a new truck, maybe more of a latest version, aka buy a new truck? At this point in time, no, I am sticking with this truck for a very long time, which is why I'm dumping a bunch of money into it, making it 100% and exactly the way I want it, because it is essentially my dream truck. And as long as I am physically allowed to drive it, I'm going to drive it. With that being said, if and when I start expanding the business and buying more trucks for other drivers to drive, yeah, I'm probably going to buy brand new, strictly because the amount of time and effort I have to put into an older truck like this to keep it maintained, keep it on the road, is too much for me myself to do on multiple trucks. I can keep up with this truck. I wouldn't be able to keep up with 5 of these trucks kind of deal. So for a truck, for my own truck, I'm going to keep this truck. But for anyone else that I would hire and give them their own truck, I would probably buy a new truck, unless an older truck is something that they want and it would work with whatever the company is going to be specializing in. As long as it works for the company, yeah, okay. Keep your employees happy. That is how I plan on running a business. He also asks, what is CDL? Commercial driver's license. That's what they call it in the States. Up here in Ontario, it is an AZ. Dump trucks, you can get a DZ. Other provinces, I think it's like a class 1, class 2, and class 3 kind of deal. Yeah, it's basically just you have to have a special endorsement on your license to drive truck, and that's what a CDL is. Steve Moss says, how long did it take to get the hang of backing B trains and driving B trains in general? When I first started pulling B trains, I hooked to a set empty in the yard and just pulled them around, see what the corners did, like see what they did around corners, where the angles were. And it took me about an hour of trying to back up, zigzagging them all over the place, making a bunch of Zs before getting kind of the idea of how to keep them straight while backing up. And basically, after that hour of trying to figure out what they're doing, it took a few months of just trying to back into everywhere that I possibly could, get experience with it. Don't be afraid of backing them up, and you get the hang of it after a little bit. I have a forklift coming up to me, and he's probably going to say I'm getting loaded, so I'll get back at you in a second. Okay, we're back. We're getting loaded. Turns out I only have 2 more things written on this sheet here. The one question is Encore Horror says, what year is your Peterbilt? 2006. It's a 2006 Peterbilt 379 with a Cat C15 MXS single turbo 650 horsepower engine, 18-speed transmission, and I'm going to say 390 gears, but I don't know if that's actually true. And then last question is Keep on Truckin' Outlaw Life says, sup, driver? Appreciate you, brother. Oh, man. You know what? Keep on trucking Outlaw Life. I see your comments on pretty much every one of my videos, and I just want to say thank you for the continued support. And as well, thank you everyone else who, one, has made it this far in the video, and 2, watches the rest of my content. I'm basically doing this all for you guys now, so yeah, just let me know what you think. Keep on telling me what you want to see, and I'll do what I can. So I hope this was entertaining and informative for those who asked the questions. And if you want me to do something like this again, let me know. Yeah. Anyways, we'll chat with you later, guys.